Welcome back to Flight to Freedom. Today's episode is one I know so many of you have been waiting for because it's one of the most misunderstood, feared, and emotionally charged parts of recovery. Set point weight. What is it really? How do you know if you're there? Why do our bodies fight so hard to get back to it? And what happens emotionally and physically when we try to stay below it or go above it? So we're going to talk about what set point weight is and isn't, why it's so important for full recovery, why weight overshoot can happen, why some people are in very large bodies and what's really going on there, and what to do when your body stabilizes and you still don't feel good in it. Whether you're just starting recovery, feeling lost in the middle, or wondering if your body has finally settled, this episode will help you make sense of the chaos, feel less alone, and begin to build trust with your body instead of constantly fighting it. Because you deserve to feel safe in your body. You deserve peace. And sweetheart, your body is not the problem. It's your partner. So, let's begin by really grounding in this. Your set point weight is not a number on the scale that you choose or earn. It's a range that your body naturally defends when it feels safe, well-nourished and unthreatened. And that word defends is key because your body will fight for this range, not against it. So what does that actually mean? It means that when you're consistently eating enough, not compensating through movement or purging, not trying to manipulate your weight through restriction or clean eating or rigid rules, and your nervous system feels relatively safe and regulated, your body will settle into a weight range where it functions best. This range is not static, and it will probably shift slightly over the course of your life, but it's not something you can control. It's governed by a complex web of factors, such as genetics, early developmental influences, hormones, your dieting history, your level of nervous system stress, your sleep, medications, and even your gut microbiome. And here's something important that almost no one says out loud. Your set point might be higher than you want it to be. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It means that diet culture taught you to want something that may not be yours. Set point is like your body's home. When you stop dragging it out into a cold field and demanding it stand there smiling, it slowly walks back inside. It draws the curtains, lights a fire and says, "This is where I belong." Now this is where people get stuck. They think of set point like a goal weight they can get to and stay at, as long as they're doing everything right. But that's still control, and that's still fear, and that is still you trying to bargain with your body. Set point weight is not a destination. It's a relationship. It's your body saying, "Let me lead now. You've done enough fighting." When you're at your set point, you don't obsess about food all day, every day. You don't need to weigh yourself constantly. You don't need to justify every bite you eat or every rest day you take. You aren't battling with your body 24/7. You start experiencing natural regulation. Hunger cues come, fullness cues return, energy stabilizes, and the wildest part for so many people in recovery is this: your set point might feel shockingly boring. You're not swinging between euphoria and panic. You're not constantly achieving or failing. You're just being, living, eating, resting, laughing, grieving, feeling. And that can feel really unfamiliar if you've lived most of your life in a state of extreme control or extreme chaos. Now, one of the most beautiful truths about set point theory is this: your body will work incredibly hard to return to its natural weight range. Even after years or decades of restriction or binge restrict cycles, your body has not given up on you. It remembers where it feels safe and it's trying to take you there if you'll let it. So now we know what set point weight is, your body's natural defended range where it feels consistently safe, nourished and unthreatened. Let's talk about why this actually matters, why it is so important. Why is fighting it so costly? And what's available to you when you stop resisting it? Let's start here. When you're in your set point range, your body can finally shift out of survival and into stability. And that changes everything. Because when your body trusts that it's going to be fed without restriction, without compensation, without the threat of famine or control, it begins to exhale. Quite literally, your breath deepens, your muscles soften, and your nervous system comes out of high alert. And physiologically, your body starts working with you again instead of just trying to keep you alive. And biologically, what happens is your hunger and fullness cues return, not because you're doing it right, but because your body finally trusts that she won't be ignored or overridden. Leptin and ghrelin, your hunger hormones, stabilize. You no longer feel trapped in a constant state of intense hunger or total numbness. Cortisol levels lower, which reduces inflammation, stabilizes your mood and supports immune function. Your metabolism becomes efficient again, not slowed, not hyperreactive, just balanced. Reproductive hormones normalize. Your menstrual cycle, if you've lost it, can return. Your libido reawakens and even fertility improves. Your digestion improves. Bloating, constipation or diarrhea that were driven by restriction or stress begin to settle. Your skin, hair, nails and sleep all benefit from the nourishment and rest. But the deeper magic is when your body is no longer in crisis, your mind begins to heal too. Emotionally and mentally, your brain isn't scanning constantly for food or control. You can focus on relationships, creativity, purpose, not just what's safe to eat. Emotional regulation becomes possible because you're no longer dysregulated from physical malnourishment. Your thoughts become clearer. You're less reactive, more grounded. You start to feel safer inside yourself, which is so important for trauma healing and reconnecting with your inner child. Being at your set point weight isn't about accepting being fat or giving up on fitness goals. It's about allowing your body to exist in her optimal, unmanipulated state so your life can finally, truly begin. And the biggest reason this matters is that life is so much bigger than body control. So many people in recovery are terrified of letting go of control. I know I was, because they believe their body will betray them. But the opposite is true. Your body is actually trying to rescue you. It's fighting to get you back to a place where you can think clearly, sleep soundly, connect deeply, heal emotionally, create, express, and feel. You cannot do any of those things when your biology is locked in crisis mode. You simply can't. And yet, this is what so many people are afraid to allow. Because set point is often not the weight you want it to be. It might be higher. It might make you grieve. It might bring up shame. But it will also bring you home to yourself. Set point is not a punishment. It's protection. When you're not there, your body is always trying to bring you back. Through cravings, through exhaustion, through binge urges, through burnout. And we so often interpret these signals as failure, but they're not. They're invitations. They're the body saying, please stop fighting me. Let me lead you home. So if being at your set point brings all this peace and regulation and freedom, what actually happens when we try to stay below it? And this is the part that you probably really do already know deep down because you're living it, and you're probably living it right now. And yet, it can be so hard to link the physical and emotional symptoms you're experiencing with the fact that you're simply not feeding your body enough to allow her to be where she needs and naturally wants to be. So let's look at what actually happens biologically, mentally, and emotionally when you're trying to keep your body below its set weight. When your body feels starved, when you restrict food, whether that's obvious like skipping meals or subtle like eating just enough to function but not enough to feel full and safe, your body responds in incredibly predictable ways because it sees one thing: threat. It doesn't know you're trying to be healthy. It doesn't know that your fitness tracker gave you a badge. It only knows that resources are scarce, and it kicks into survival mode. And that looks like your metabolism slowing to preserve energy, so you burn fewer calories doing the same things. Your leptin levels drop, making you hungrier, and ghrelin levels rise, making you more food-focused. Your reproductive hormones plummet, periods can stop, libido all but disappears. Your body deems pregnancy unsafe. Your thyroid function decreases and you feel cold all the time, tired, foggy. Cortisol spikes, keeping you anxious, irritable, and hypervigilant. Your digestion shuts down. You might feel constipated, bloated, or nauseous after eating. You lose hair, your skin dulls, your nails become brittle because nutrients are being diverted to more essential functions. Sleep is disrupted. You might wake up in the night hungry or panicked or with your heart racing. And emotionally, you begin to feel like a different person. Let's look at the emotional and cognitive impact of the brain in starvation, because your brain is not exempt from the consequences of restriction. In fact, it's actually one of the first places affected. Obsessive food thoughts, thinking about your next meal, planning, calculating, fantasizing, even dreaming about food. Irritability and low frustration tolerance. Tiny things set you off. Anxiety and fear spike because your body is biologically afraid. Concentration becomes difficult, memory suffers, and your creativity dries up. Depression and emotional numbness can set in because pleasure and joy get deprioritized. You may well become socially withdrawn because your brain turns inward in survival, making connection feel exhausting. It's not your fault. You're not broken. You're undernourished. And the deeper cost is your whole life shrinks. And that's the cost people don't talk about as often, because you start missing out on your own life. You turn down dinners. You avoid holidays. You skip birthday cake. You dread clothes shopping. You can't focus on your work or your relationships because your brain is obsessed with maintaining control. You stop laughing as much. You stop dancing. You stop relaxing, and you stop feeling, because your entire system is being held hostage by this one mission. Don't let the body change, keep the weight down. But that control is not freedom, it's a cage, and it is exhausting. And what's even harder is the longer you fight your set point, the more your body resists. You become less able to maintain a lower weight without intense effort. You may start experiencing binge restrict cycles. You might even begin to gain weight despite eating very little because your body just doesn't trust you anymore. And this isn't you failing or being weak or being out of control. You're actually just living in a body that's doing everything it can to survive. And this is where the choice appears. You can keep fighting your body. You can try to maintain the illusion of control, but the cost will grow and the cracks will keep showing. Or you can choose to stop fighting. You can begin the process of refeeding, resting, and trusting. And yes, your weight will likely go up, maybe more than you want, maybe more than you imagined, but that is not the real loss. The real loss is the version of your life you're not living because you're still trying to manipulate your body into something she never asked to be. Now, let me just have a quick drink. Let's talk about something pretty much everyone in recovery fears and many do experience, which is overshoot. You start nourishing yourself again. You stop restricting. You let go of compulsive movement. And then your weight climbs and climbs and climbs. And you start thinking, this is too much. I must be broken. This can't be right. This is definitely not my set point. Let's pause and take a breath. You're not broken. Your body is not malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it needs to do to heal. So what is overshoot and why does it happen? Overshoot is when your weight increases beyond where you think your natural set point is, or beyond where it used to be during recovery. It's common, it's temporary, and it's biologically intelligent. Because when you've lived below your set point, whether for months, years, or decades, your body has been in some form of famine. Whether or not it looked that way to the outside world, your body experienced threat. Now that nourishment is coming in, it does what every smart, life-protecting system does. It stockpiles, it rebuilds, and it prepares for the next famine. Because your body doesn't know this is permanent safety yet. Your body's job is not to make you thin. It's to keep you alive. And when it finally gets food again, it doesn't take that lightly. And your body remembers. Biology is slow to trust. Think of it like someone who's been in an abusive relationship. They finally leave, find safety, but do they trust immediately? No. They're hypervigilant, waiting for the next blow. And it's the same with your body. She's been hurt, ignored, starved, and silenced. And now she's watching carefully. Will I get fed tomorrow? What if this is just another trick? And so, your body overshoots. It stores extra energy in fat cells, drives your hunger up, holds water, salt, and energy, and rebuilds what's been lost: muscle, bone density, organ tissue. And that weight gain, it's not just fat. It's safety, it's repair, and it's trust being earned. And mental restriction can also keep you in overshoot. Even when you're physically eating more, if you're still judging your hunger, feeling guilty after meals, picking the safe option, avoiding certain foods, mentally calculating, comparing, or planning every bite, your body knows it's not safe. That restriction might be softer, but it's still there, and your body is still protecting herself. And that protection can look like prolonged weight gain, an inability to stabilize, ongoing chaotic eating or intense hunger, digestive issues or exhaustion. And it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because your body hasn't reached full trust yet. And full trust requires not just eating, but releasing control. Set point creep and dieting history is another important truth. For some people, your current set point might be higher than it used to be because of the effects of chronic dieting. Years of weight suppression, binge restrict cycles, and metabolic adaptation can push your body to defend a higher weight just to feel safe. And this is called set point creep. And while it feels unfair, it's not punishment, it's protection. If your body has learned that starvation is always around the next corner, it's going to raise the alarm higher each time to make sure you survive the next time. And unless we truly stop the cycle, and I mean fully stop, it can't recalibrate. So will it settle? Many people find that when they stop restricting, rest fully, and regulate their nervous system, their weight does settle, sometimes lower than the highest point reached in recovery. But only if they don't interfere. If you panic and restrict again, your body hits the panic button. If you try to compensate with movement or clean eating, your body pulls back. It's a paradox. The less you try to control your weight, the more stable it becomes. But, and this is important, some people will stabilize at a weight higher than they expected. And that's okay too. Overshoot is not the enemy, it's the bridge, it's the messy middle, the part where everything feels out of control, the part where your old identity dies and the new one isn't born yet. And it's also the part where your skin starts to glow, your period comes back, your brain softens, your laughter returns, and your body starts to trust you again. Overshoot's not forever, but it is necessary, and it's the proof that your body is still trying, still healing, still loving you, even when you don't love it back yet. And this is where recovery starts to feel really real. Not just physical, not just behavioural, but emotional, existential, identity shaking. Because for so many people, especially in eating disorder recovery, the set point weight their body naturally returns to feels too high, too soft, too big, too shameful, too unfamiliar. And I want to say something really clearly. You are allowed to feel that way. You're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to feel angry and betrayed. This isn't about pretending that it's easy. It's about finally telling the truth. And we have to grieve that fantasy, because many of us have spent years, if not decades, holding on to a fantasy. That fantasy that if we just tried hard enough, if we just ate cleaner, exercised better, healed deeper, recovered perfectly, our body would settle somewhere acceptable. Maybe a little curvier, but still pretty, still safe, still small enough, still worthy of love, success, and admiration. And then you go all in, you do the work, you surrender, and your body says, "This is where I live now." And it's terrifying. Because what you're grieving isn't just a number. You're grieving a lifelong identity, a sense of safety, and let's face it, superiority. The illusion of control. The cultural privilege that we get taught comes with thinness. And the hope that one day you'd feel enough through appearance. And that grief is real. But grief doesn't mean you're going backwards. Grief means you're finally letting go of the fantasy and making space for the truth. Let's look at the stories behind the resistance, because often when we say, "I can't accept this weight," what we really mean is, "I don't believe I can be loved like this. I'm scared people will leave me. I think I'll lose my worth, my credibility, my femininity, my power. I don't recognize myself." And these are deep primal fears, and they're not irrational, but they are conditioned. We've been taught since childhood that smaller is better, that thinness equals virtue, beauty, health, and success, that fatness means failure, laziness, and lack of control. So it's not just your own belief system you're working against, it is the culture that taught it to you in the first place. And healing from that isn't just about changing your thoughts. It's about grieving the loss of a story you were never meant to carry in the first place. And this is often the part of recovery where the inner child work needs to happen. Because the fear of being in a larger body almost always comes back to not feeling safe, not feeling lovable, not feeling acceptable, chosen, or special. And when your current adult body brings up all these buried childhood wounds, of course it feels unbearable. But this is also the doorway to profound healing. Your body doesn't need to be smaller. Your inner child needs to be held. Only stop trying to fix your body and start nurturing your inner world. Something changes. And you stop asking, how do I shrink? And start asking, how do I soften? And that's where the real peace begins. And yet, let's be honest, it is still hard. It's hard when clothes don't fit. It's hard when people stare or make comments. It's hard when loved ones don't understand, and it's hard when you don't understand yet. But just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Being uncomfortable doesn't mean you've made a mistake. Your set point weight might not be what you'd hoped for. Mine isn't. It might feel foreign or confronting or unfair. But it is where your body works for you, not against you. It's where your mind quiets, your cycle returns, your hunger regulates, and your laughter comes back, and you start to live again. And no matter how confronting that is, it's not failure, it's freedom. And let's look at the truth behind the fear, because so many people believe that if they accept their set point weight, they're giving up, letting themselves go, surrendering to a life of shame. But acceptance isn't defeat. Acceptance is power. It's saying, I no longer base my worth on being palatable to others. I will stop outsourcing my safety to the scale. And I'm willing to be well, even if that means being bigger, because that is brave, that is radical, and that is revolutionary. And your fear doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're healing in a world that taught you to fear your own fullness. So let's go right into the fear that actually just about everybody has underneath this part of the recovery process. What if I never stop gaining weight? It doesn't matter how much science someone knows or how many podcasts they've listened to or how many reassurance posts they've read on Instagram. When they start letting go of restriction and their body begins to change, this fear roars to the surface. It feels irrational. We kind of know it's irrational. Logically, we know it's not true, but it also feels undeniably real. I'll just keep growing. I'll get bigger and bigger. I'll become unrecognizable. I'll never feel comfortable again. I'll never stop eating. I'll never be okay. Let's stop right there and say this with love, because that fear is normal, but is also not true. This fear comes from the survival part of the brain, the part that experienced famine or starvation, restriction or control, and now believes that any loosening of the reins means complete chaos. And for a while it can feel like that fear is true. Because at first, when you begin eating freely, it can feel like you have no breaks. You might feel ravenous, out of control, compelled to eat everything you used to restrict, and that can feel terrifying. But this isn't your real self going off the rails. This is your biology doing exactly what it was designed to do after deprivation. You're not binging, you're refeeding, and it won't last forever. But it feels endless, but it isn't. When your body has been restricted, either physically or mentally, your hunger cues become suppressed, distorted, or chaotic. So once you begin to eat freely, your body sees an opportunity, and it doesn't know yet whether it will last, so it goes all in. Cravings intensify, hunger cues become louder, food becomes incredibly appealing, You might feel like you're always thinking about it. And this is biological compensation, not a personal flaw. Your body doesn't want to eat forever. It just wants to feel safe enough to stop having to scream. Once your body receives consistent, unrestricted nourishment over time and consistency, which is crucial, it begins to regulate hunger, reduce preoccupation with food, recalibrate satiety signals, lower its defense systems, and the urgency softens, the panic quiets, and the constant, "what can I eat next?" begins to fade. But this doesn't have a time scale. It takes time, patience, and total surrender. Not halfway, not diet versions of recovery, not as long as I don't go too far, but complete surrender. And what keeps people stuck in this cycle is the trap of interfering too soon. And that actually leads to ongoing weight gain. And it's the repeated interruption of this process. You allow yourself to eat more, but only for a while. You try to listen to your hunger cues before they've had time to return consistently and reliably. You start compensating with gentle movement or portion control. You panic at weight gain and cut back just a little to begin with. And what happens? Your body goes right back into mistrust and the whole cycle starts again. More hunger, more chaos, more overshoot. If you want the chaos to stop, you have to stop pulling back. Healing won't settle until you stop trying to manage it. Your body won't relax until you stop giving it reasons to panic. So will you just keep gaining forever? No, you won't. Not if you keep going. Not if you stop interfering. Not if you give your body the time it needs to feel truly, deeply safe. Eventually, your body will do what all living systems are wired to do. It will find balance. But balance is not the same as control. Balance doesn't mean returning to your old weight. It means your body reaching the point where energy in and energy out stabilize without you doing the maths. You eat, you rest, you live, your body adjusts, just like every other body in nature. And what helps calm the fear is to name it aloud, to bring it out of the shadows and say, "I'm terrified I'll keep gaining weight." Because shame thrives in silence and speaking it out starts to loosen its grip. Ask what this fear is trying to protect you from. What would it mean if it did happen? What are you really afraid of? Loss of love? Judgment? Identity? Remind yourself that this fear is a trauma echo. Your brain is protecting you based on past experience, but that doesn't mean it's predicting the future accurately. So look at reality. Look at bodies in your family, your genetics, your history. Look at what your body is doing, not what your fear is saying. And get support. Fear is heavy, but you don't have to carry it alone. Bring it into your coaching sessions. Join the eating disorder recovery circle and join the chats. Journal it, share it. And if you're in a place of thinking, "I'm just going to keep gaining weight forever," take a deep breath. Put your hand on your heart and hear this. You're not out of control and you're not broken. You're healing. Your body doesn't want to grow endlessly. It just wants to recover fully. When you stop trying to prevent that, it finally gets to stop fighting about it. So let's zoom out now, because everything I've talked about so far has been in the context of recovery, especially recovery from restriction, anorexia, or chronic dieting. But what about people who aren't recovering from an eating disorder? What about people who have always lived in larger bodies or who became overweight or obese at some point and never went back. Are they at their set point? Is that just how they're meant to be, or is something else going on? And this is one of the most emotionally loaded and culturally misunderstood questions we can ask. But it's also incredibly important, because if we don't understand why some people live in very large bodies, we risk oversimplifying a deeply complex issue. So let's talk about it openly, respectfully, and with as much nuance as it deserves. So first, body diversity is real. Just as we're all different heights, body sizes can vary. Some people are in fat bodies because this is where their body naturally functions best. Their weight is genetically predetermined. Their parents, grandparents, and ancestors had similar body types. They eat intuitively, move gently, and live full, healthy lives, and they're still fat. That's not pathology, that's diversity. And we need to say that clearly, especially in a culture that equates thinness with virtue and health. Fat does not automatically mean unhealthy, and thin does not automatically mean healthy. We cannot look at a body and know someone's health status. And yes, some people are fat because that is their biological set point, and trying to force their body smaller would harm their health, not improve it. But that's not the whole story. There are also people in fat, obese, or super morbidly obese bodies who don't feel good. They may have low energy, joint pain, hormonal imbalances, digestive issues, sleep apnea, mobility difficulties, chronic inflammation, and their body may not be functioning at its best. Not because it's large, but because of why it became that large. And that's the key truth. Not all high body weights are natural. Some are adaptive, some are protective, and some are the physical expression of trauma. So what pushes a body above its set point? There are so many reasons why someone might end up in a much larger body than their natural set point, and most of them have nothing to do with a lack of willpower or eating too much. So let's look at some. A huge one, is chronic dieting and weight cycling, which is one of the most overlooked causes of long-term weight gain, because we're fed this bullshit story that we're supposed to be a certain weight, and people diet. And when someone diets repeatedly, especially from a young age, the body begins to fight harder and harder to protect itself. Every round of weight loss triggers a famine response, where the body slows down metabolism, increases fat storage, and becomes more efficient at holding on to weight. And when that person inevitably regains because diets simply don't work, they often end up heavier than before. This is called the set point creep that we mentioned earlier, and is not your fault. It's your body's attempt to survive chronic restriction. People don't gain weight because they fail. They gain weight because their body is doing its job trying to protect them from the threat of starvation. And over time, this pattern can push someone far above their natural set point, and their body may defend that higher weight just as fiercely because it no longer trusts that food will be consistent. Another reason is trauma and nervous system dysregulation. When someone has lived through significant trauma, especially early childhood trauma, their nervous system may never fully learn to regulate. Cortisol remains elevated. Insulin sensitivity can be impaired. Hunger and fullness cues are dysregulated. Emotional eating becomes a primary coping mechanism, and the body holds on to fat as a survival strategy. Food becomes comfort, protection, control, numbing, or soothing. And that doesn't mean the person is bad or lazy. It means food was the only safe or reliable thing in their environment. And when people say they're eating their feelings, my response is often yes. because no one taught them how to feel, and food was always there for them when other people weren't. Environmental and socio-economic factors, because we can't talk about body size without talking about access. Access to nourishing food, access to medical care, access to movement that feels good, access to trauma-informed therapy, access to safe housing, education and support. When someone grows up in a food desert or experiences poverty or works 2 jobs with no time or energy to cook, their choices are shaped by their environment. And it's not just access to food. It's access to safety, stability and care. Blaming someone for their body size when you don't understand their environment is like blaming a plant for not growing in poor soil. Medication and hormonal and medical issues. There are certain medications, especially antipsychotics, mood stabilizers and steroids, and medical conditions like PCOS, hypothyroidism and insulin resistance, and hormonal imbalances that can all lead to increased weight outside of the person's control. And in some cases, the treatment that improves someone's physical or mental health may also result in weight gain. And that doesn't mean it's wrong. This is a complex, multifactorial issue, not a simple matter of eat less and move more. So, should people in fat bodies lose weight? And that's a really tricky truth because we do not heal bodies by punishing them. For someone who is in a very large body who is struggling physically, the answer is not to restrict, obsess, or shrink themselves out of self-hatred. The answer is to understand why the body is where it is, to build safety, stability, nourishment, emotional regulation and connection, to approach that body with curiosity and not criticism. And for some people, that may lead to weight loss as a byproduct of deeper healing, and for others it may not. But either way, healing must be the goal, not thinness. Weight is never the problem, it's the symptom. The question is never, how do I lose this body? The question is always, what has this body been carrying for me? So, some people are fat because that's where their body belongs. Some people are fat because their body has been trying to protect them for a very long time. And either way, they're not broken, and they're not lazy, and they're not failures. They're human beings with bodies doing the best they can with what they've been given, and they deserve healing, dignity, nourishment, and support no matter what size they are. So, maybe you got to the point where you've gained weight, it's stabilized, but you still don't feel good in your body. Maybe this is where you are now. You've gone through the hardest part. You've gained weight, you're not actively restricting, you're eating enough, and the constant chaos has quietened, and your weight has stabilized. And still, you don't feel good in this body. It doesn't feel like home. It moves differently. It feels heavier. You're more aware of your thighs rubbing, your belly folding, and your arms taking up space. Maybe you feel uncomfortable getting dressed. You might avoid mirrors. You might dread seeing yourself in photos. And you think, if this is my set point, why does it still feel so hard? And this is such a common and tender part of the process, and it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you've arrived at the place where emotional recovery begins. You've stabilized physically, but not yet psychologically. Reaching your set point doesn't mean you've arrived at full peace. It means your body has come to rest, but your mind and your heart might still be catching up. And that gap between physical stability and emotional safety is often filled with grief, shame, identity confusion, loneliness, disorientation, and the raw ache of not recognizing yourself in the mirror. And this is not a sign that you need to lose weight. It's a sign that you need to connect with your body, not fix it. to feel it, to be in a relationship with it, to build trust and intimacy, not barely veiled intolerance or tolerance. Weight restoration is the beginning of embodiment, not the end of the work. So why doesn't the body feel good? There are several real valid reasons why your body might not feel good, even at your set point. It's a new landscape. You've never lived in this body before, and it feels foreign, and of course that feels uncomfortable. It's unfamiliar, but unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. And you haven't built a relationship with it yet. You have spent so long fighting your body, controlling it, shrinking it, silencing it. You've now stopped the war, but you haven't yet built connection. You're coexisting, but not yet collaborating. You haven't yet rebuilt strength or mobility. During restriction or early recovery, muscle mass may well have decreased. Movement was likely compulsive and then absent. And now you've stabilised. Maybe you don't feel strong, energized, or flexible. This isn't about changing your body. It's about inhabiting it again. You might not feel good in your body because you're still outside of it. Healing is learning to move in. So how do you start to feel better in a body that feels heavy, foreign, and awkward? And that's where the work becomes more subtle, but deeply transformative. You have to rebuild physical connection gently, not to change your body, but to inhabit it. Try intuitive, joyful movement like walking, dancing, stretching. Notice how your body feels, not how it looks. You start to build strength not to lose weight, but to feel powerful. What kind of movement makes you feel alive? And you get to grieve because you're allowed to miss your old body. You're allowed to feel sad that clothes fit differently or don't fit anymore. And you're allowed to feel frustrated when movement feels harder. But grieve without turning it into a plan to fix yourself. Grieve so you can move forwards with truth. And speak to yourself with a new language. Right now your body might feel like the enemy, but it's the place that carried you out of hell. And you don't have to love how you look. But can you respect what your body has survived? Can you soften it into compassion? Can you say, this is not my fault, and it's hard, and I'm still healing? My body's not the problem, it's the messenger, and I don't have to like it to honor it. Let go of the timeline. Just because your weight has stabilized doesn't mean everything else is meant to feel perfect right now. It doesn't mean you're behind. You're in the integration phase, and that takes time. Peace doesn't come from getting back to your old body. Peace comes from returning to yourself. And if you're thinking, so this is just how I have to feel forever, the answer's no. But you don't feel stuck because your body is wrong. You feel stuck because your inner world still believes your body is supposed to be something else, and that belief takes time to unlearn. That relationship takes time to rebuild. But you're not stuck, you're settling. Your body has stopped panicking, and now your heart and mind are slowly learning how to join it, and you're allowed to take your time. So come home to your body and yourself. Take a deep breath with me right here. This has been a lot. We've talked about set point, what it is, why it matters, and what happens when you fight it. We've talked about overshoot, grief, fear of gaining weight forever. We've looked at why some people live in very large bodies, why some people feel trapped in stabilised but unfamiliar bodies, and what healing might really mean. And through it all, there's one thing I want you to hold on to. Your body is not the problem. It's the response, it's the communicator, it's the survivor. And now it's asking to become your partner, not your project, not your enemy, not your trophy, but your partner. You can stop the war. You don't have to keep checking the mirror, the scale, the fit of your jeans to know your worth. You don't have to hold your breath every time you eat something you used to forbid. You don't have to keep chasing a feeling of control that only ever ends in fear. You can live a full, beautiful, connected, liberated life in the body you're in right now. You can move with joy, eat with pleasure, rest without guilt, and love without apology. But that freedom doesn't come from being smaller. It comes from being honest and being willing to meet yourself as you are, no longer through the lens of shame, but through the lens of compassion. And if you're ready to go deeper and do this emotional work, I'd love to walk with you. This work is beautiful, but it's not easy, and you don't have to figure it out alone. If you're feeling like you've stabilised physically but you're stuck emotionally, or if you're just starting to loosen your grip on controlling, it feels terrifying, there are 2 powerful ways I can support you. There's one-to-one coaching. This is for you if you're ready for the deep, personalised support. We have one-to-one private video calls, and between sessions, I'm with you through voice notes and daily support. We go into unpacking fear and resistance, nervous system safety, inner child healing, rebuilding trust with your body and food, identity transformation, grief, self-worth, and truth. It's not about managing symptoms, it's about changing your life. And if you're ready for that kind of intimate work, just message me and we'll talk about whether it's a good fit for you. And the other way is the Eating Disorder Recovery Circle. If you're not ready for one-to-one coaching, or if you want community alongside your journey, the circle is here for you. It's an ongoing, compassionate, shame-free space where we do this work together. You get live group coaching calls, Q&A sessions, live workshops on topics like the fear of weight gain, identity, perfectionism, boundaries, private daily chats for connection and support, and recovery challenges, and of course, full access to my courses and teachings. Whether you're new to recovery or years in and still stuck, you're welcome here and you belong. We go far and we go deep. And wherever you are, you're not alone. There's one thing I want you to remember from this episode. It's that you're not too much. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're in a body that is working every day to keep you alive. And that body deserves your care, not your control. The journey back to your set point is the journey back to yourself. And whether it's messy or peaceful or terrifying or joyful or all of it all at once, there is no wrong way to come home. So thank you for being here, for your honesty, and for being willing to imagine that there is a version of you who is free. She's not a fantasy. She's already inside you, and she's waiting for you to stop fighting and start listening. And whenever you're going to take those steps, I'm going to be here for you. Lots of love, and I'll see you next week.